Hey, it's tomato tour time. This is tomato tour number 3. I'm in zone 7A. My name is Gail the Gardening Gal, and it is July 2nd, 2022, and we will take a look at the good, the bad, and the sad. Let's get started. Let's start out with Prarie Fire today. So Prarie Fire has kept on growing. It's doing better than it had in the last particular video. And let's take a closer look at the fruit. See if I can get in. And you can see they're pretty good sized. I've already had a couple off of this, and they're actually quite good tasting. So here in the alcove we have our twins. So on the left hand side, whoops, we have black cherry, and on this side we have fireworks. And let's take a closer look. You can see we have a fair amount of tomatoes on fireworks. There's actually quite a few, and there's still more developing up top, and it's really interesting to see these really large sprays. You can't really tell right now. They were humongous earlier, but looks like I'll get a fair amount of tomatoes off of this. Next door we have black cherry, and black cherry has plenty of nice fruits on it. Haven't had anything ripe yet, but there's still plenty of season left for that. Time to visit the dwarfs. This one is Dwarf Arctic Rose. And I do have at least one on it, but this is kind of a sad plant because it is really defoliated. But it looks like at least I'll get something of a harvest. Well, right next to Dwarf Arctic Rose we have Purple Rain, and I have a lot of nice tomatoes on here. And the plant looks pretty healthy, so I'm excited to try the tomatoes on Purple Rain. Here we have, next to my huge basil plant, we have Rosella Crimson, and there are some tomatoes on Rosella Crimson, and they look to be pretty good size. So it still looks like it's a bit of time away from being ready, but that's Rosella Crimson doing very nicely. And on the other side of this huge basil bush, I have Sweet Scarlet Dwarf. Now, one thing about Sweet Scarlet Dwarf is I have yet to find a tomato on it. Plant's growing, plant looks nice. I've seen lots of flowers and not a single tomato on it so far. And I'd say it's probably about, maybe 2 feet tall at this point, maybe a little bit more. No tomatoes, very late bearer. Across the pond, as in the other side of the raised bed, I have Tennessee Suited. I kept calling this one Tennessee Britches in the last video, but it is Tennessee Suited. It is a dwarf, and the tomatoes are all on the back side of it. So that's why I'm showing it to you from this angle. Now, they're supposed to be striped tomatoes, so let's see what happens as the season gets a little bit further along. Now we're playing peekaboo with New Big Dwarf. So there are tomatoes here, which is about the middle of the plant, but as we go down, we see all kinds of tomatoes down further on the plant. So this looks like I'll be getting a really nice harvest off of New Big Dwarf this year, which is great because the last couple of years I've had it in less than the best spots. And now that I've got it in a good spot, it's doing beautifully. So this one's kind of a sad. This is one of my red robins, and it's a sad because I accidentally broke the stem about a week or so ago. It's still kind of hanging in there, but it is producing a lot of nice cherry tomatoes, and I've gotten a lot. There's still a lot, and red robin is just a trooper. Let's go check the other plant. Now, this red robin has not been nearly as prolific as the other one. I'm not quite sure why, but the other one's definitely growing better. Could be its neighbors, who knows. Anyway, I have been getting some tomatoes off of red robin, and so far they look very nice and they are tasty. Now we have Orange Hat. So this is one of the tomatoes that well, not this particular plant, but I grew this variety indoors last year throughout the winter, and the tomatoes were so tasty that I just had to grow them outside. So it's just started ripening its fruits, and yes, I've had a few, and yes, they are wonderful, even better grown outside. kind of the story of the season is, this is my other yellow hat, or excuse me, my other orange hat, and this one is not doing nearly as well as the one that I just showed you, so it's kind of like a who knows. Now here is a boxcar willy. This is the one that was kind of skewed last time. I still haven't gotten in its cage. It probably won't get in its cage because I think I've let it go too long. So I'll need to restake it, and this one is doing pretty nicely so far. Now here's my other black cherry plant. It has plenty of tomatoes on it, but it's gotten kind of spindly out here. I think it needs probably another feeding and a little bit of pruning, but it does have plenty of cherry tomatoes on it, so that's a good thing. So here we have Cherokee Purple. It's not the biggest plant in the world. Of course, I bought it as a seedling instead of growing it by seed, but it seems to be doing okay. It's got some tomatoes on it, so we'll see what happens with Cherokee Purple. Golden Queen, and she does have some fruits on her, but I'm not sure quite what to think about the plant. It is not growing all that great. It's next to black cherry in the background, which is pretty good size, and this one isn't. But we'll see what happens. It could be the soil that I'm planting them in. I think I really need to amend the soil this coming year. Rest in peace, my other boxcar willy. Yes, I had to cut it down because all of a sudden it crashed. I did leave a little tiny, shoot of it in the ground to see what would happen, but the plant was looking so beautiful. It had a ton of tomatoes on it. So I did pick them all green when I took the plant down, and we will, I'm going to make some green tomato jam out of it, so we'll see how that goes. And green tomato jam, it sounds horrible. It tastes wonderful, kind of like an apple pie filling. Now, next to the boxcar willy was Druzba, and Druzba is still hanging in there. You see it's got a good sized tomato on it. Last time I grew it in Florida, it grew to about 2/3 of this size. So I'm real happy with Druzba so far. It has bounced back a little. It was doing very poorly, but it's bounced back some, and now it's starting to produce fruits again. Well, here's Mortgage Lifter, and this one isn't doing great, but it's not doing badly either, considering where it is, which is right next to the melon plant that's kind of like deciding to take over the world. But I do see that it does have at least one fruit on it, so that's a good thing. Anyway, that's the Mortgage Lifter that I bought from the store. So we're looking at some of the fruits from Krinkovich Yugoslavian. Let me zoom back out a bit. And I have had a couple of the fruits off of this so far. Well, actually, I've had one. 2 have been eaten by either slugs or birds. It's pretty good tasting. I'm waiting for this one to ripen, really, because this one's getting left on the plant longer than any of the others. But it's gotten to the 4 foot tall. Not sure what to think about this yet. It's not doing great, but again, this is a brand new area that I just started growing in this year, and that could be affecting the growth of some of these varieties. Well, right next door we have watermelon beefsteak. So I have this one in its little bag. Have it in an organza bag because something keeps trying to eat my tomatoes before I get to them, which is not a happy thing. I do have quite a few other on this plant, but the plant itself does not look all that healthy. So I don't know, it may outgrow it. It could be just that horrible heat wave did in so many of the plants. But at least I do have a few tomatoes, and this one I think is going to get picked later on today. So this one is watermelon beefsteak. So here's a pink Fang. The plant is very short. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be an indeterminate, I think. And it's kind of been acting like a determinate in some ways. I do have a lot of fruit on it. I have some huge fruits down below. But the problem with this is that as soon as I touch the fruits, they have the tendency to fall off. So they are going in the green tomato jam with the ones from Boxcar Willie. But I'm really looking forward to trying this one if I can ever get the ripe fruits. I mean, I have some really big ones down at the bottom and I just can't get to them. this is a sad one, or yeah, I guess sad. This is black from Tula. There's nothing left. It was really doing badly. I even waited to try to get the fruits to ripen. They were terrible, so I ripped the plant out. I'll probably try again in a future date, but black from Tula did not make the cut this year. Now here's some fruit from Tennessee Britches. So this plant isn't doing too terribly well either, but it's also the plant that's closest to the bird feeder, and the birds fertilize it. So Tennessee Britches does have a lot of fruit on it, just not big like I was expecting. So here's one of my Adapt tomatoes. So this is one of the ones from the seed trial program. This is Glazier's Giant. The tomatoes that it produces are really good sized. I picked one the other day that was at least a third bigger than this one, and so this one's going to be the next one I think I have ripe. But let's see, I've got another one up here. Let's see if I can get it in camera. It's really good sized, so I'm hoping that these taste really good. If they do, I am definitely growing Glazier's Giants again next year. Now this is my Blue River plant. This is the second of my Adapt tomatoes, and it is full, and I do mean full, of large fruits. I mean, the one that I just showed you was about the average size of the others on this plant. Now I haven't had anything off of it yet. I'm still waiting for some stuff to ripen, but I don't know if you can tell. Let's see if I can get it. But there are a lot more tomatoes on this plant that are really, really good sized. So if this one tastes good, oh yeah, I'm growing Blue River again next year. The last of my Adapt plants is Steuce, and here we have a tomato that is starting to ripen. And what's really kind of strange is that one is about halfway up on the plant, but I have some down here that have not even started ripening yet, and usually the lower ones ripen before the upper ones. I do have a fair amount of tomatoes on Steuce. It is a very compact plant. If the tomatoes are good, I may grow it again next year because it is nice and compact, and I can use it in areas where I don't want a huge bush. But we'll see what happens with Steuce. Now this is Kustrali. It has bounced back from whatever was bothering it earlier, and it is just doing beautifully. Now let me go ahead and show you, or hope to show you, some of the tomatoes on it. It's really super hard to show it because they're so packed in, but here is the first ripening fruit on Kustrali. And of course I have it in a baggie to protect it from the birds. I've got a lot more that are starting to ripen over on this side. I have more on the other side, and this is starting to look like a very productive plant. Kustrali, if your tomatoes taste good, you've earned a permanent spot in my garden. So now we get to the sad. Yeah, this is my wonderful black cherry wannabe, and let's take a look at the fruit. I've been having them under organza bags so that the birds don't get to them, but as we can see, this is a red tomato. Oops. And it is an ox heart shape. I have had a couple off this plant so far, and they have not been ox heart on the inside. They're pretty juicy. So I don't know what the heck this is. I'm going to christen it Mystery Creek because I got it from Baker's Creek, and it is a total mystery as to what's going on with this plant. I'm going to have to take it out pretty soon because it is just not doing really well at all. And I've had to cut and cut and cut and cut back, so I don't know. I do see some fruits up at the top, but we'll see what happens if I have to retire this plant or not. You know, I keep forgetting to talk about this particular tomato plant. This one is a seedling that kind of sprouted in my raised bed. This is an 8x4 raised bed. I was going to tear it out, kept meaning to, and never got around to it. Then when some of the other plants were just not doing too well, I figured I may as well let this one grow. And yeah, it's growing. I think I need to put in like 5 stakes on it. Uh-oh. So that's it for my tomato tour. Stay tuned for my pepper tour coming up. And again, this is July 2nd, 2022. I'm Gail the Gardening Gal, signing out saying have yourself a great day. Bye.